Hi everybody. Today we're going to look at finding estimates to multiplication problems, which goes along with lessons 2.3 and 2.4 in our math textbook. Start by writing the title on your notes. Now, let's think about how we could solve this problem. If each car on a train had 200 seats, how many seats are on a train with 8 cars? 8 cars with 200 seats in each could be solved by multiplying 8 times 200. One way to solve 8 times 200 is to draw a quick picture. If I use a square as my 100 and put 2 of them next to each other to represent 200, I could draw 8 rows to show 8 times 200. Then I can count up my hundreds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That means I have 10 hundreds, which is the same as 1,000. Counting the remaining hundreds, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which gives me an answer of 1,600. Now, I can calculate my answer that way, but it's time-consuming. An easier way to do this would be to use place value and to think of the number 200 as 2 hundreds. If I multiply 8 times 2 hundreds, I have 16 hundreds. 16 hundreds, I know, from place value, can be written as 1. So there are 1,600, or 1,600 seats on a train with 8 cars. Let's take a look at these examples. To multiply using place value, I look for the pattern. First, I find my basic fact. 3 times 7 is 21. And 3 times 70, 3 times 7 is 21. Since 70 has a 0 on it, I need to add that to my answer to get 210. And 3 times 700, 3 times 7 is still 21. Adding 2 zeros, I get 2,100. 3 times 7,000 still gives me 21, but with 3 zeros, I have 21,000. Now, it's important to watch for a basic fact that already has a 0 in it, like 8 times 5. 8 times 5 is 40, but I still have to add a 0 to get the answer for 8 times 50 of 400. In all of these examples, 8 times 5 is 40. But when I add my extra zeros, 2 for 500 and 3 for 5,000, I get my answers of 4,000 and 40,000. Think about those problems. How does the number of zeros in the product of 8 and 500 compare to the number of zeros in the factors? Remember from the previous page, 8 times 500 gives me a basic fact of 8 times 5, which is 40, with 2 zeros, so my answer is 4,000. Pause right now and write down an answer to this question. We notice since 500 is a hundreds digit, we have at least 2 zeros in this answer. But because 8 times 5 had an additional 0 in the original fact, there's an additional 0 in this answer as well. Here's 2 examples to try on your own. Pause the video and write them down, and then replay to check your work. Did you find that 4 times 5 is 20? Which told you that 4 times 50 was 200? 4 times 500 was then 2,000, and 4 times 5,000 was then 20,000. How about this? Did you find that 6 times 500 you could be thought of as 6 times 5 hundredths, giving you 30 hundredths, which would be the same as 3,000. You may be wondering why you would do all that. The estimation trick helps us use multiplication strategies to solve problems that require estimation. For example, look at this problem. An elephant can reach as high as 23 feet with its trunk. It uses its trunk to pick up objects that weigh 3 times as much as a 165-pound person. About how much weight can an African elephant pick up with his trunk? I need to know about how much weight can an African elephant pick up with its trunk. That word "about" tells me this is an estimation problem. In this case, the fact that the elephant's trunk can reach 23 feet is unnecessary information. I do, however, need to know that the trunk can pick up objects that weigh 3 times as much as a 165-pound person, giving me the problem of 3 times 165. Since my problem has the keyword "about" in it, I'm going to estimate. And we remember, when we estimate, we round first and then calculate. First, I would round 165 to the nearest hundred, with the 1 in the hundreds place and a 6 in the tens place. I use the rule of 5 or more raise the score to get 200. Then I multiply 3 times 200. In 3 times 200, I find my basic fact, 3 times 2, which is 6. So 3 times 200 is 6 hundredths, giving me my final answer of 600. Of course, if we've learned anything over the time, there's always more than one way to do it. You can also estimate by finding 2 numbers that an exact answer is between. In this type of problem or estimation, I would take my basic number, 165, and I'm still looking at my hundreds place, but I'm thinking 165 is between 100 and 200, and I'm going to use both of those numbers to find my answer and multiply 3 times 100, or 3 times 100, giving me 3 hundredths, or 300, and 3 times 2 hundredths to give me 6 hundredths, or 600. Now think about that problem, 3 times 165, and write down these questions and your answer. We rounded to find the estimate for 3 times 165 to the nearest hundred, and found our estimate using 3 times 200 to equal about 600. Is 200 less than or greater than 165? And would the product of 3 and 165 be less than or greater than our estimate of 600? Since 200 is greater than 365, the product of 3 and 165 should be less than our estimate of 600. We can use this information to decide if our answer is reasonable when we multiply to find exact answers in future lessons. Let's go ahead and try to use estimation to describe if someone else's answer is reasonable. Here, Ava's horse eats 86 pounds each week. She solved the equation to find out how much feed she needs for 4 weeks. If horse eats 86 pounds a week in a period of 4 weeks, we could find that answer by doing 4 times 86. Ava says she needs 344 pounds of feed. Is her answer reasonable? Let's try it. If she needs 344 pounds of feed, we can decide if her answer is reasonable using estimation. Pause the video and complete this calculation to see if you agree with Ava's answer. Then replay to check your work. Since 86 is a tens digit, I'm going to round to the nearest 10. 6 follows the rule 5 or more raise the score, and I'm going to round 86 to 90. 4 times 90. I find my fact, 4 times 9, which is 36. With a 0 in my factor, I get 360. Looking at my rounded answer of 360, if I compare it to Ava's answer of 344, the answers are close. That tells me that the answer is probably reasonable. Additionally, the number I multiplied by when I rounded, 90, is greater than the original number of 86. My estimated answer, 360, is also greater than Ava's answer of 344. Altogether, this tells me that Ava's answer is a reasonable estimate. And we know, of course, there's 2 ways to do it, so we can find the estimate and see if Ava's answer is between those 2 numbers. In this case, I take my number 86, and I think 80 is below it, and 90 is above it. So I'm going to multiply 4 times both of those estimates. 4 times 8 is 32, and a 0 for the 80. 4 times 9 is 36, and a 0 is 360. Since Ava's answer of 344 is between my estimates of 320 and 360, I know that her answer is reasonable. Try these 2 problems on your own, finding the estimate between the exact answer for 5 times 2,213. Remember, you're going to take 2,213 and look for the number that's below it and above it, and then multiply both. Pause the video now, and then replay to check your work. Since the 2 in 2,213 can stay a 2, it's going to be between 2,000 and 3,000, giving me the problems of 5 times 2,000 and 5 times 3,000. 5 times 2 is 10, with 3 zeros for my thousands, gives me 10,000. 5 times 3 is 15, with 3 zeros for my thousands, gives me 15,000. So my answer would be between 10,000 and 15,000 if I found an exact answer to this problem. We'll solve more problems like this in class tomorrow to see how you're doing. It's important at this point that you practice your basic facts regularly until you can easily find the answers. If you're struggling with the basic facts from these problems, be sure to find a flashcard app or use a program from the internet or just flashcards from the store to practice this skill. Have a good night.